I could say the late Dianne Vesty, but you're not that late, really. So, welcome. Good afternoon. And the floor is yours.
Yeah, my sincere apologies for lateness. I have got some copies of my submission here. I just mainly wanted to add to our points 1, 2, 3 and 4 in our original submission, and that the main point we wish to address is that we don't oppose the Ruatanawha Dam project. We believe it must be viable in its own right to proceed. What we do oppose is the other projects which would benefit existing users being put on hold to advance a project for mainly new users. This summer's drought showed a number of fruit growers adversely affected by a lack of water. The majority of those growers have orchards in areas that have been established for many, many years. Fruit growing is largely situated in the Heretaunga Plains at the lower end of catchments. Minimum flow levels are established and the downstream users have no control over abstraction upriver. During the drought, it was seen that minimum flow levels were about to be reached and abstraction rates increased as users upstream appeared to be topping up before they were cut off. This means that the river levels depleted rapidly. Consent holders at the end of the catchment were cut off, and this is no security of supply for those consent holders because they're situated at the end of a catchment with no control over the amount of water travelling through their part of the catchment. A recent change in policy that linked users within 400 metres of a waterway has resulted in a number of groundwater consent holders situated quite some distance away from rivers due to insufficient science being assumed to have an impact on surface water. For these users to renew their consents, expert evidence is required from the consent applicant to dispute the assumptions, and this is where the cost to consent holders is incurred. There doesn't appear to be a strategy to cover the transition up until all of that science is available. Security is really important. Water is the lifeblood of horticulture, and in general, fruit growing is considered an efficient user of water. Fruit growers require the ability to make long-term plans, and investment decisions need to be based on security of access to sufficient water resources. Buying land for horticultural purposes requires the ability to implement long-term business and management plans. Land values are impacted by water availability because insufficient allocation of water for any horticulture business limits productivity. Fruit trees are not a relocatable commodity. Availability of water. Adequate water must be available to sustain the horticulture industry and to ensure that the versatility of the land is secured for future generations. Horticulture, viticulture and agriculture are the main economic drivers within Hawke's Bay region, and the prosperity of the community depends on the ability of these sectors to flourish. Ongoing research and development will give us a clearer understanding in the area of water resources and is critical to ensure ongoing good management of the water resource in Hawke's Bay. So we're just outlining that we believe the Council's priorities should be to complete the groundwater modelling, to enable the transitional policies until groundwater studies are completed, and to prioritise the sustainability of existing economic businesses in the Heretaunga Plains. And that's the end of our submission.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Councillor Scott.
Questions, just on the matter of the change in policy.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of any change in policy. I think the policy is probably still there. And isn't it just based on tests of storativity and transmissivity rather than an assumption?
My understanding is that the old rule was 400 metres distance from a surface water was the limit for people being connected.
Perhaps Ms Vesty needs to check up with staff, because I think the rules and the plan and the policies remain unchanged. There's guidance on that. Maybe some clarification around that might help, Mr Chairman.
Sure, we can provide assistance with providing that information. Councillor Rose?
Thank you. Hi, Dianne.
Hi.
You didn't talk to us about the biosecurity this year, so we can assume that you're happy and satisfied with what we're doing with biosecurity.
We're working along there.
Yeah, that's good. We had the Mayor of Hastings in before lunch, who also raised the matters that you've raised about the water stress that affected a lot of trees on the unconfined aquifer because of bans and so on. Mm-hmm. His suggestion was that perhaps we could have a panel of various people in the community who, in a sense, would have the right to override the consent conditions to allow watering in that over that stress period of time. How would your members react to something like that?
I'm pretty sure that they'd react fairly positively to being involved in.
Yes. Do you have any other ideas yourself of how we could manage that situation of where, under the consent, a ban has to be imposed, but for the sake of longevity of or the livability of the trees, we've got to circumvent the ban?
It is a tricky one, but as I say, if fruit trees die, they take a long time to replace them. Productivity is knocked out for many, many years. The association is involved in the tank group, and I understand that they are making considerable progress, and I hope that that group's going to be another venue for those sorts of discussions.
Yeah, maybe a tough one, Dianne, but you just made a comment regarding water security being reflected in land values. Do you have a view as to how much water security is reflected in how much of the land value, just as a matter of interest?
Well, take for example the properties which are situated in central Hawke's Bay with very, very low land values. There's a lot of properties down there without access to water. Some of them are suitable for different types of activities, and their value would increase if those activities were enabled. Likewise, if you have land, say, situated in Twyford, which is productive versatile soils without water, the land value is seriously going to drop.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Just a question. I noted your observation that the Naroro water storage thinking ought to be delayed or put on hold. How do you reconcile that with the climatic situation and your users' requirements for water? Can you tell me about that? Okay.
Sorry, your question says that. Sorry, you questioned me that the Naroro study should be put on hold. We would argue that it shouldn't. I misread
your submission.
Look, the other way around.
Sorry, no, I've.
That was just a heading. There was a heading that we're proposing.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And she's saying
that's
lost the plot.
I've lost the plot.
It's a long day. Yeah.
It was worth clarifying, though. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions, Councillor Douglas?
Sorry, Dianne. Just a question on your comments on charges and people not necessarily understanding what the state of the play. How would communication improve in your judgment? And secondly, are you happy with the prices or the costs of Section 36 at the moment, and all the structure behind it, perhaps more importantly?
The biggest thing from my perspective is that any grower I speak to is confused about or is unclear or doesn't understand what studies are currently being done. And the information may be there or it may not be there, but they're certainly not able to locate it. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. No further questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
No, thank you.